We begin the program with breaking news. Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Foreign Minister Yair Lapid have agreed to dissolve Parliament. The move is expected to force the country's fifth election in less than 3.5 years. Lapid will take the role of interim Prime Minister until the polls. For more on this, let's bring in Bernard Smith, who joins us live from West Jerusalem. Bernard, talk us through the details of what's happened.
This coalition government has been stumbling along for the last few weeks. It's a miracle in many Israelis' eyes that it's lasted as long as it has, 1 year. It was the strangest coalition government Israel's ever seen, a combination of parties from the far right, the left, and the first time that Palestinian Israelis had been involved in an Israeli government. It was brought together, this government. Its sole reason for being, really, was to get rid of Benjamin Netanyahu. And it did that, and it managed also to pass a state budget, the first time it's done that in Israel in 3 years. But it's Benjamin Netanyahu who has engineered the downfall of this coalition government. He has been Israel's Prime Minister for a total of 15 years previously, and he wants the job back. And what Netanyahu did was, with his coalition opposition partners, he voted down the renewal, the normal standard automatic annual renewal of a settler bill that extends Israeli law into the settlements. This expires at the end of this month. Without its renewal, there's sort of legal chaos in the settlements. So the governing coalition realised that it's not going to be able to get this bill passed, so they've accepted that they're going to dissolve Parliament and go to new elections. Netanyahu gets what he wants, new elections, and maybe the chance to come back as Prime Minister. And the settler bill, because the Knesset is being dissolved, will be automatically extended now for 6 months until a new government can vote on it. There'll be elections now, probably not before sometime in October, and Yair Lapid, he will take over as interim Prime Minister while the government goes through the process of calling those new elections. Again, the 5th time in 3.5 years that they've had to have an election in Israel.
All right, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. Bernard Smith, live for us in West Jerusalem. Also in West Jerusalem is Jalal Abu Qatta. He's a political analyst. Jalal, thanks so much for being on the program. Talk us through, firstly, the turbulent weeks that have led up to this point and the pressure that the government has been under. Is it any surprise that it's got to this point?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
I was just saying, is it any surprise that it's gotten to this point? Lead us through what's led up to this point.
Yes, it is no surprise. I think from the first moment this coalition came into power last summer, it was seen to be very fragile. And in Jerusalem, especially Palestinians in Jerusalem, were extra worried because they felt this government was going to try to prove its worth to the right of the Israeli electorate, the right wing, the settler movement, those who would vote usually for Netanyahu and right wing parties. This coalition government tried its best to become the government of the right in order to survive its full term. Yair Lapid was a very smart politician, I would say, trying his best to navigate the intricate politics of Israel, trying to get the left-wing parties, those are considered the Meretz, Labour, and other right-wing parties, trying to get them all to support his coalition government, trying to prove to Israelis that this government is the solution for Israel. But everyone knew that it was standing on a stick. It was very close to collapse multiple times over the past few months. And we have seen just now how the game of politics in Israel is so cynical. The fact that the Israeli right-wing parties have voted against extending this civil law for settlers in the West Bank just in order to topple the government. And yeah, it was no surprise at all. It is not a shock at all that this government could not even survive 1 whole year.
Jalal, will this election change anything, or could Israel still end up in the same unstable position?
I don't really believe it will change anything. As a Palestinian speaking, I don't believe it will change anything. For Israelis themselves, there is concern, there is warnings that a next government could be bringing in Netanyahu and Ben Gvir into the government. It could bring in extreme right-wing politicians into the government, which could further damage Israel's standing in the world, technically, by embracing apartheid more fully on and strengthening the settler movement, which would lead, I would guess, to isolating Israel on the international arena. So some Israelis fear that a government of the right would further isolate Israel globally. So I think there will be a stronger fight by the governments, the Israeli parties, which proclaim to be liberal, proclaim to be left-wing, trying to win the electorate again in order to oust Netanyahu for once and for all, to show that he is only a charlatan trying to play politics. They will try to prove to Israelis that they are more worthy than those who are cynical in their politics game, such as the right-wing parties led by Netanyahu mainly.
And what does this move mean for former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Could he form a coalition before Israelis even head to the polls?
I think Benjamin Netanyahu is better and stronger at destroying and demolishing whatever other politicians are able to build and to establish. No one imagined a coalition government that included right-wing parties, the Labour Party, which is considered left-wing, left Zionist party, Haaretz, and the United Arab List. No one thought this would be possible. Netanyahu was able, through continuous bickering, was able to topple this government, as we clearly see right at this moment. I doubt that Netanyahu would be the one to form the next government. We will see changes in Israel. I think there will be a similar government such as the one we've seen now, perhaps led by Benny Gantz, perhaps led by other centrist Zionist parties, which could unite more of the Israeli political parties against this one person, Netanyahu, because he is seen to be a destroyer rather than a builder of coalitions.
We really appreciate your analysis on this issue, Jalal Abu Qatta, a political analyst in West Jerusalem. Thank you.
Thank you very much.